Thanks everybody for coming out and continuing to this day. It's a lot of interesting things have been said for sure. And obviously a topic that has come up repeatedly has been artificial intelligence. And what I want to talk about today is how Tiffen is utilizing artificial intelligence within financial services. So we've been doing this now for 5 years. So our founder really felt that AI, there was a great use case for AI within financial services in particular. And so before it became the tech du jour, we started working on a whole bunch of different areas. And we felt that financial services was a great use case for this pivot in what we believe to be a seismic move in technology. So we think that AI really is a general purpose platform. And so I think the fear is a bit overblown in certain areas where AI is going to replace workers. And I think there'll certainly be industries where that happens. But at the end of the day, we think it's a general purpose platform where this actually helps the human intelligence and will facilitate more productivity across industries, rather than necessarily be something that replaces productivity. I think there'll be some aspect of that. And Stanford has that same mindset. And so this gentleman, Eric Byrne-Olufsen, look at the quote that he puts up there. AI won't replace managers, but managers who use AI will replace those who don't. What we use at Tiffen is that financial advisors won't be replaced by AI, but AI will be replaced by, financial managers who use AI will replace those who don't. So with that, we think that the productivity that we're going to see in the financial industry is going to be significant over the course of the coming decade. And so what you see here is that this has created a boom in investment. And in 2023 alone, there was $22 billion that was invested in AI. However, most of that went to the infrastructure layer. So think early days of the internet, the Cisco systems, et cetera, more the picks and shovels. But so that's the large language models. That is like chips, things like that. So obviously we're seeing quite a bit in the hype around NVIDIA stock, the new platform that they just built, and we're seeing large investment through companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft into the OpenAI, Anthropic's, Meta's platform, which is Llama. So we're seeing these models that are being built, and that's basically the foundational layer of that. So where we see an opportunity is in the applications, right? So the vertical applications, and of that 20 billion, about 95% of that went to infrastructure, but only 5% went into applications. So think about the internet, right? What was it what happened when the internet became transformative for all of us? That was when you had the advent of applications, and Google search being really the first application of the internet, but then that led to the Ubers of the world, that led to the social media applications of the world, that led to the DoorDashes of the world, that led to the Wazes of the world, all the things that we're using on a day-to-day basis that have really allowed us to immerse ourselves and utilize technology on a daily basis and making our lives a bit easier. So there was a study in that McKinsey's recently conducted that says by 2030, there'll be a 10 to 20% GDP improvement from AI. And if financial services represents roughly a quarter of that GDP, it's estimated that 2.5 to 5 trillion will be added in terms of improvement to financial services just through the advent of AI. So again, we know that we're just in the beginning, and that's really where we think the opportunity exists through the companies that we're building at Tiffen right now. So just in terms of a bit of, if we want to go to that. So really, if we look at that, Tiffen started in 2019. And what we did was we started creating fintech SaaS companies that were powered by natural language processing that were powered by conversational UI and machine learning principles. So we were really, our thought process was that we could create new businesses that were aligned in asset and wealth management and utilize the AI toolkit to enhance these businesses over the course of time. And what our thought process was one, could we garner institutional investment to help us derive these solutions, look at the problem areas that these companies were having, and because it takes time to implement new technology, what were the different use cases that could be utilized sort of immediately so that firms could start to recognize a return on investment. I'll put posts out there on LinkedIn from time to time about this, and I'll always talk about we're solving real problems for real customers. So our institutional investors, which include JP Morgan, which include Franklin Templeton, which include SEI, Hamilton Lane, Motive, just to name a few, not only are they investors in our business, but they're also partnering with us. They're looking to build solutions with us, and they're looking to bring those solutions to market, but in a very, very, very responsible way. And when I say responsible, it's trying to think about what are the problems that we can start to solve today that AI can assist, what frictions can we solve, and then how can we ultimately scale these businesses, and how can Tiffen help us do that? So,
are you guys organized as a holding company or a
We are.
venture studio or?
Yeah, so Tiffin is a holding company, but the process in which we create these new companies, and you're seeing some of the companies that we've either created or exited over the last 5 years on the screen now, is through what I would consider a venture studio model, right? So we provide the strategic capital, the talent, the expertise in the early days of these pre-seed companies to get them up and running. Then as we bring in, a C+ round or a Series A, that allows us to provide those companies more independence from bringing in independent CEO, an independent board. And the goal is to ultimately have them exit the Tiffen ecosystem. So the two at the top, Parallel and 55, have gone out that process over the last few years. 55 IP was bought by JP Morgan back in 2020. Parallel hit profitability in its first 18 months, operates basically completely independent from Tiffen. The other companies, as you go down, are kind of earlier in their stages, but we provide that kind of early nebula to get them up and running, and then allow them to exit. Tiffen then will retain some level of ownership, typically between 30 and 70%, depending on how we bring in outside capital. And then we'll obviously be able to get paid back dividends in the long run.
So it's similar to an accelerator, help using the founders to go into the founders of these companies. Service.
So the difference between an incubator and an accelerator is we're not developing these with external founders, right? So all the ideas that we're developing in-house are coming from our CEO and founder, Dr. Vinay Nair, or they're joint ventures with our strategic partners. And these are the Hamilton Lanes, JP Morgans, where they have a friction point they're trying to solve. They have the right data set, but they're using us and our expertise to build that AI application layer on top of their data set. And then some of those are turned into joint ventures that then we can go out to broker dealers, the RIAs, go downstream in the market and sell them as independent companies.
So not only a venture studio, but also like an outsourced venture studio to your partner.
Correct.
Partnering firm.
Yep.
And because
It's not just your ideas.
yeah, when we're smaller by design, we can move a lot faster than, let's say,
Yeah.
The data science team at BlackRock, et cetera.
Is there a common foundation on the LLM on these models, or each one is starting their own large language models?
Yeah, so look, I think the world that we're living in right now, if anyone's familiar with Hugging Face, marketplace for LLMs, right? I think there's about 400,000 LLMs on there, and they're being updated weekly, monthly, right? Our team in-house, right, so we have a whole team of machine learning engineers and LLM experts. They're constantly putting together different ensembles in each one of these companies that serves the purpose. So like Helix is an AI co-pilot that we have around private market fund data, right? The ensemble that we put together there is going to be fundamentally different than Magnify, which is direct to consumer application. So our ability to kind of pick and choose the best LLMs that we see, because some are better at calculations, some are better at language recognition, right? We have the discretion, and that's where our expertise is really coming into play, to put together a right LLM ensemble on top of that proprietary data set, create a supervised training loop, and that gets a custom vertical AI, right? People are probably familiar to a vertical SaaS nomenclature. We're going into an era of vertical AI applications. So forget Bard, forget ChatGPT. Those are going to be your broad-based ones. But when you're talking about, private markets or portfolio insights, you got to build them to the purpose. And that's what we're doing with different LLM.
Right, so I think it was the point that the earlier panelist said that everything you do on large language models is shared, is now their ownership. That's not the case with the privates that will be coming out.
These are mostly walled gardens. And then, so we have two main buckets, right? I'll just hit on them fast. So you have these Gen AI solutions that will sit on top of a desktop for a financial advisor or hedge fund manager, whatever it may be. And then you have these supervised AI systems that are more mid-back office that are looking into proprietary data sets at these firms. So Tiffen AG is a company that we apply the models to look at acquisition, retention, and expansion opportunities for large wealth enterprises. We partner with RBC Wealth Management. They're somebody who we publicly announced a partnership with. It is a walled garden of RBC's data, but we're getting data intelligence through these LLMs that then RBC is able to circulate out to their field force to say, hey, this client's at risk, or these prospects look most like your best clients, right? So that's the type of intelligence these models are doing at a firm level through things like AG or AMP. We do that on the asset management side.
One last question, very follow-up. Are you following the European and UK and now US joining them, the directives in terms of AI management? AI risk management and compliance in general? I mean, that's a very big.
It's a great question. And I don't think it's fully baked. I think there's going to be a lot more regulation coming in the next few years. What I will say to that is our partners are major financial institutions who are very tuned into that, and they're not going to build anything that puts themselves at risk. So we are making sure that, right now, the client's compliance standards are the highest level that we have right now until the government regulations are put in place. But we're making sure that, whatever supervisory restrictions, record-keeping restrictions, compliance standards that JP Morgan is implementing internally, we're building solutions to those standards as well.
I'd love to follow up with you on that. We're definitely reactive on that space.
And and again, because financial advice to some degree is being disseminated through some of these tools, we have to be very careful in terms of how that gets disseminated, the accuracy of that information. And that's what we're really working on in terms of, some of the, the walled environments that AJ was talking about. So,
and I also think, just one last point, this is why you're unlikely to see AI make a direct advice recommendation anytime soon. It's going to be human plus AI, right? The AI is going to help distill data, distill information, produce a draft memo faster for the individual, but ultimately it's going to have that level of human oversight at least in the next 3 to 5 years before, we all get our heads around the regulatory risk, the compliance risk that's associated with these. But, it is an interesting time that, we're seeing these partners, they spent 2022, waking up to ChatGPT in the market. 23 was observation mode. Now we're seeing these strategic partners, money flowing in, they're doing pilots, they're doing experiments. And I think we'll see more mass adoption over the next few years as well.
Thank you.
So here's this list of strategic investors that I had talked about: JP Morgan, Franklin Templeton, Morningstar, Hamilton Lane, SEI, and Motive. They've all invested a cumulative amount of just over $235 million into Tiffen and our ecosystem. And again, they've doubled down not only on the investment, but they're working with us as partners, data providers, and working to derive new solutions as we go forward here. So as AJ mentioned, all of this was the brainchild of our founder, chairman and CEO, Dr. Vinay Nair, who came out of academia, was a full-time professor at Wharton, was a full-time professor at MIT. One of the things that he studied was a concept that he derived called investment intelligence, which is what led to the production of his first company, which was 55IP. I was one of the first investors in 55IP. I'm also one of the first investors in Tiffen. My background was in financial services. I was an advisor for 20 years, sold my firm to one of the largest RIAs back in 2022 because I was so sold on what was going on at Tiffen. I wanted to come and be a part of this full time. And with 55 in particular, that is now a $40 billion company. And the CEO that we hired back in 2018 that allowed Vinay to step in as a chairman to start Tiffen, just got named vice chairman of JP Morgan Asset Management. So one of the things that we're doing as the Tiffen ecosystem grows, Vinay is a brilliant entrepreneur. And I think he's a brilliant entrepreneur because he understands the things that he doesn't know. And one of those things is he wants to go out, he wants to build these companies, but unlike, you know, an Elon Musk or unlike a Jack Dorsey, he doesn't feel the need that he has to run all these businesses. So we want to go out there and we want to find, as AJ mentioned, we want to find the talent and the capital to be able to operate these companies, even though they may have been, you know, some form of brain trust that Vinay had derived at some point. And being able to have an ecosystem like Tiffen allows those ideas come to life. But we look at, we need to go out and we need to find the best talent. We need to find, you know, the right folks to be able to operate these businesses with some oversight from the holding company.
Well, so we have time for a couple of questions. Any more questions from the audience? If you want to do some closing statements. I mean, I was, you know, Fred Nazen's here, who's one of the great venture capitalists of all time. And I think that finding a good manager might be the toughest thing to find, huh?
Yeah.
Somebody who can really manage a business, which is why Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk have carry such a premium.
Yeah.
Right?
I have a question for you. What is the role of non-LLMs, SLMs, small language?
Edge models.
I'm probably getting over my skis, since I'm not a technical expert on that, but I can definitely follow up with our team, figure it out. Yeah. So just in closing, so what are we talking about here today? Obviously, we talked about the opportunity, we talked about Tiffen. We are raising capital partners funds. It's actually the second time that we did this. We did this back in 2022. So it's an access vehicle to our portfolio of companies, as well as any new ventures that we establish over the next couple of years. We won't go through the details, you know, real quick. Yeah, back in 2022, we did raise 27 million. It returned north of 2.47 multiple on invested capital within 23 months, including distribution of our sale 55 IP.
And the model for Tiffen Capital Partners 2 is very similar to Capital Partners 1, where our LPs would be coming in to an existing portfolio of companies with some more mature businesses, some medium-term businesses, and some early startups. So it's really going to cover 3 different areas. And so we think that that's going to diversify your risk. It's going to give you a quicker path to liquidity, but it's also going to give you that early stage potential for juiced returns. And so we know this playbook. We've done it. We did it in Capital Partners 1. I was also a limited partner in Capital Partners 1, so I would experience that firsthand. So we want to follow on to that track record with Capital Partners 2. And this is, again, as AJ said, it's an access vehicle to all of the portfolio companies of Tiffen, which is why we felt it was important to go through that in the first part of this presentation. And so we would welcome any conversation that folks want to have. We think it's really interesting. We are the clear leader in the clubhouse as it relates to the financial services business in terms of the number of institutional investors that we have, in terms of the number of institutional partners that are actual customers. We're building very strong relationships with these institutions. They're trusting us implicitly to help build these solutions. And there's just no other platform in the financial services world, wealth management, that exists like Tiffen. So we're we continue to be excited about this opportunity. And we obviously want to share that with the family office and high net worth individual communities for sure.
What's the size of the fund and duration?
So it's a 10-year fund. My capital will be called over 5 years, and we're looking to raise somewhere around 50 million.
All right. Fantastic. Great, guys. Thanks so much.